Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. A few things to wrap up and catch up. We got a little bit of housekeeping to do in this video. A lot has happened in the last 2 weeks since, well, rather the Isle of Man was 2 weeks ago, but we also raced up the world's steepest street, which happened around about 8 days ago. So I'm gonna have to make this video all about what's been going on this past few weeks. So after the world's steepest street hill climb, which I thoroughly recommend you check out that video because it was great fun, after that race I took 4 days off. It was 3 full days and kind of half of a fourth day. I took 4 days off, and being that I was in such good shape at the time, I wanted to take time off keeping big picture in mind. The next month, for me at least, is gonna be very important. But then even looking towards the hill climb season that I really enjoy doing, which tends to push things into, well, the national hill climb is the 27th of October this year. So it's an awful long time to try and maintain any kind of motivation, form, shape, fitness, whatever you want to call it. So taking 4 days off was my choice. And being that I coach myself, I fully bought in. The important thing to remember was having those days off would, in the short term, make me very fresh, but in the long term, help me achieve my goals. The idea of having 3 or 4 days off, 5, 6, 7 years ago when I first started training and racing for GLT Condor, was very alien to me. I never wanted to take days off. Well, I say never wanted to take days off. I never wanted to take multiple days off over a long period of time because I thought it would be detrimental to my fitness, But in the long term, it definitely 100%, if you schedule it in properly, it will definitely help you. And what I noticed, and I think this is the main talking point of this video, at least this is one of the things I've jotted down because I've made a bit of a list here, so pardon if I keep referring to the notes. So when I took those 3 or 4 days off last week, I started back riding Thursday night. So I did a session on the turbo Thursday night. It was just an hour, but it was more to blow the cobwebs out. The day after that, I did 2 1-hour sessions, one in the morning, one in the evening. They happened to be on the turbo as well. No reason, they just happened to be on the turbo. They were quite intense as well. And then that was Friday. Saturday was the day before Rydale Grand Prix, which, spoiler alert, James and Jake absolutely bossed it. So well done, guys. I know you're watching. They rode a really good race, but the day before Rydale, I was feeling quite tired. More in the legs than anything else, and I think that is just muscle soreness is still a little bit of a shock. Even if you have 3 days off the bike, 4 days off the bike, it's still a little bit of a shock. Don't just think you're gonna jump back in and feel amazing because you're really fresh. Although lots of people respond differently, so take that with a pinch of salt. The day of Rydale, I knew I was going into it with an open mind. I was I've had this break, I've been going well in the Isle of Man, but don't put that up there and say I'm gonna have great legs. So the first thing I noticed was my heart rate. My heart rate was a lot higher than what it has been the last kind of 3 weeks, whatever, peaking up to the Isle of Man when I was in really good shape. So having all of these things are presumably in direct result from having those 3 or 4 days off. So my heart rate was around about 10 to 15 beats higher, as in the average and the maximum. So my maximum was around about 186 for Rydale Grand Prix. If I was riding on the climbs, which there was many climbs on the course, I think the longest climb was around about 4 minutes. If I was riding at, say, 370, 380 watts, my heart rate would be around about the 175. Now, rewind time to maybe a week or 2 before that, and it would be around 1.6 to 1.65, And the biggest thing I notice about that is my breathing. So obviously when your heart rate is lower, you don't have to breathe as hard, you don't have to breathe as much to get as much oxygen in. Because it's simple mechanics really, but it's quite interesting to gauge the effort off just the breathing. And I found that the primary takeaway was that my cardiovascular system was hitting fatigue quicker than my muscular system was. And by that I mean, I could attack on the climb, which I did at one point. I did like a 30-second really hard effort over the top of the climb to bridge across to a little group. And as I got over the top, I was almost instantly in oxygen debt. And I looked down, my heart rate was like 185 or something, and I was like, whoa, like this is high. And at the time I was like, my legs feel fine, like my legs feel great. And there wasn't really any point in the race where my legs kind of didn't feel bad. But just the nature of the race was really hard start. I think I had a 0.9 intensity factor for the first 2 hours almost. And it was more just a case of my heart rate was rising and I was having cardiac drift, which happens when you start to get fatigued at the end of a race. The numbers start to increase. So I was becoming less and less able to do something. I was managing to clamber back on after every climb, and it almost looked very like, this isn't Ed, like how come he was riding so well like last week and now he's like, so this is like putting that into perspective really. But it's funny because then I backed it up. I did 4 hours yesterday, which is the day after Rydale, and I've done 3 hours today, both near 200 TSS. Today's ride was fairly hard to get nearly 200 TSS in 3 hours. And I feel great now. Like I've returned back to normal, before the break, which is only a week and a few days ago. So it's amazing how quickly things come back. So don't be afraid to rest is the takeaway message. All right, the second thing that I wanted to talk about is this book that I'm currently reading. It's written by a dude. I don't want to botch this, so I'm going to quote it. Dr. Dave Alred, MBE, The Pressure Principle, Handle Stress, Harness Energy, and Perform When It Counts. And I'm not really into like these books as such, like these kind of self-help books. I mean, I am and I'm not. It depends kind of what they are. Like the Chimp Paradox and stuff like that, I didn't really get it. It was too, I don't know, I just didn't really get it. But this book is more about kind of the basics, and there's an awful lot of case studies in it. And the case studies I seem to get more out of than just like drawing and basic stuff. So there's a quote here. Dave Alred is the coach who helped Johnny Wilkinson keep his cool and basically changed his kicking career. So the quote is from the chapter on managing learning, and it's called The Ugly Zone. I messed up. I can't play this piece properly. I hit the ball in the water again. When you're attempting to master a new skill or improve on an existing one, and you're trying and failing to correct something you've done wrong, you're in the ugly zone. The ugly zone probably applies more to sports that involve some sort of skill. Now, I'm not saying cycling doesn't involve any skill, but in terms of twisting this to match what we kind of undertake on the road, you can use this as an example. Say, for example, you wanted to do a hill. You wanted to do this climb that takes 20 minutes, but you want to do it in 18 minutes. Now, say, for example, this hill, it takes 300 watts to complete in 20 minutes, but it's going to take 325 watts to do in 18 minutes. The ugly zone is you putting yourself in this place, knowing that you're going to have to go harder eventually at some point to make up this time, or to put in more effort, 25 watts in this case, to get the desired outcome. As I say, in skill sports, it's very easy to pluck little things and put yourself in an ugly zone. Say, for example, a cricket player who, you know, he's very used to taking a ball from a really fast bowler at 65 mile an hour, but then all of a sudden he faces somebody who can bowl at 95 mile an hour. Or Andy Murray, you know, he's up against Roger Federer, and Roger Federer hits a ball at 100 mile an hour in a serve, and all of a sudden Rafa Nadal hits it at 130 mile an hour. What's he going to do in that situation? It got me thinking, when I read that, it got me thinking, like, how does that, like, I don't think we put ourselves in this ugly zone enough. Like, I don't think I do even. And I really want to try and do that more. And that's by, like, doing that. I've signed up to do an Audax at the end of, I think it's at the beginning of November, actually. I've signed up to do an Audax, which is like a 300-kilometer event that goes down into the south coast, but just for a bit of fun. But that's going to put me in the ugly zone. Like, I'm going to be on the bike. It starts at 10 p.m. at night. We're going to be riding through the night and finishing at like 6, 7 a.m. the next morning. There's no like time limit on it, but riding through the night, something I've never done before. That's an ugly zone for me. And like, in terms of training and going back to the hill example, putting yourself in that ugly zone will bring the rewards that you're after. Doing things that you've never done before, experimenting, trying new stuff, it will get you different places. I've learned that the last month, 2 months, more than I think I've learned in the last 6 or 7 years. The ugly zone can be a difficult place to be physically, but more importantly, it demands a massive amount of mental energy. Yep, I agree with that. Imagine the unhelpful thoughts that the cyclist might experience urging them to quit, or the mental energy required to do it again and again as they fail to reach their target. The ugly zone can be demoralizing in the extreme, but it is where true improvement can be achieved. And I think we need to say no more. I need to spend more time in this ugly zone. Let's go do 1 million press-ups. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this has like filled a gap as to what's happened the last kind of week and a bit. Me and Charlie had a great time in Bath, which is where we spent our 3-4 days actually just away, unplugged on a little city break. Nothing extreme, nothing fancy, just getting away from everything. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a like, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.